Right. Let's talk about key metrics for home services business. Now, if you own a home services business, these are the metrics that you need to be tracking. I'm going to say there's the key metrics and then there's like the secondary metrics. They're all good to look at or at least understand. So let's kind of get through these and I'll give you an idea here. So here's what I want to go through, and I'll show you a little bit of the math. But here's generally what we track for a lot of clients that we help out. So we have, and I'll go back through this, but we have the total cost, total leads, estimates, converted or sales, opportunity, cost per lead, booking rate, closing rate, average ticket, cost per acquisition or cost per closing, and then we have a few of these secondary metrics, cost per estimate, basically sales per estimate, NVPLI, and then total revenue to total opportunity. So let's kind of go through these. So here are the this is initially what you need to be tracking as a business in order for us to get these metrics. So what you need to know is your total marketing costs, your total leads, total estimates, total sales number, the number of sales, total revenue, and then total opportunity, which is the value of all estimates, total revenue being the value of all sales. So now let's go through our four primary metrics here that we want to get from these numbers. So we'll start with booking rate. So number one is booking rate. Key metric. Booking rate is going to be the total number of estimates divided by the total number of leads. So, for instance, if you had 50 estimates and 100 leads, then you would have a 50% booking rate. So this number is going to tell you, out of all of the leads that we got and paid for, how many of those became estimates. Typically, you're looking at 80 to 90 plus. That's where you want to be. That's a good range to be. You know, you're paying for these leads. You want every lead to become an estimate, but not every lead ends up following through. And that is your booking rate. So, and all these numbers are really designed to help you see what levers you can pull, where is the inefficiency, and help you make your business more efficient, right? That's the point of having all of these numbers. So, okay, cool. So booking rate, that's our first here. Secondary here, we have our closing rate. Closing rate is the total number of total number of sales divided by the total number of estimates. So if you had 50 estimates and 25 sales, you would have a 50% closing rate. Booking rate, closing rate. Okay. Great. So, booking rate, closing rate. Typically, I think, 40, 50% is pretty good for closing rate. That's I think an ideal number to shoot for. Obviously, higher is better. 50%, 60%, anything below 40, below 30, now you're got a problem, right? So this closing rate is how you judge your sales team. Out of every estimate they go to, how many sales are they getting? That's your booking rate. Next, we have our average ticket. What is average ticket? Average ticket is the total revenue that you brought in divided by the total sales. So this average ticket is basically telling us how much revenue do we bring in on every sale. On average, how much are we making when we make a sale? How much is a customer giving us in revenue for that sale? This is super important. It's probably one of the most important metrics here because this is how you know if you're not charging enough and you need to charge more for your services, right? Each industry is going to have a different average ticket, right? But this is a big lever of pricing that a lot of businesses, especially home service businesses, fail to charge enough. They fail to charge enough money. So, use your average ticket to raise your prices and find that sweet spot with this. So if you had $100,000 in revenue and you had 25 sales, then you are looking at, what was that, 4,000, right? 4? I believe that's correct. 4,000 average ticket, which would be, so that is our average ticket. Now, lastly, we're going to go to our cost per acquisition or cost per closing. Cost per acquisition equals the total marketing cost divided by the total sales. So our cost per acquisition tells us how much we're paying to acquire a paying customer. And these numbers go together, average ticket and cost per acquisition, right? So if it costs us, let's say we had a $10,000 marketing cost and 25 sales, then our cost per acquisition would be $400. So what that means is that for every sale that we got, we paid $400. So we want to look at this average ticket to the cost per acquisition, and that gives us an idea of how much are we spending on marketing for every acquisition, for every sale. And you want to be probably around that 10%. 15 is starting to get really high. 8 is probably where like a big business would say they want to be, and then below that's great, but if it goes too low, you're probably not spending enough. You could probably be getting more customers in the door. But if it starts getting higher than 15%, then you either need to, then that's where that's where this whole thing comes in, right? These are all your levers that you can pull. So if your costs are out of whack or your sales are out of whack, you can look here now, once you get all these numbers, and we track these for every business we work with. Now, are we having a problem answering the phones, right? Is it our booking rate? Are we not getting people on the phone? Are we not getting people to estimates? Are we not answering our phone? Are we not getting to leads quick enough? That we're losing all these leads. They're just slipping through our fingers, right? So that's a lever. Hey, if that's not working, we got to pull that lever. We got to do better. Is it our closing cost? Is it our closing percent, right? Or close rate? Are we not closing enough? Does our sales team need more training? Do we need to do something there, right? We need to get our closings up so we're getting more revenue. Is it our average ticket? Are we not charging enough? We need to bring that up. We're getting a bunch of sales, but we're not getting enough money for each of those sales. We're doing all this work. We're not charging enough, right? Or, generally cost per acquisition. Are we just spending too much? Are we spending too much on leads, right? Are we putting too much into marketing? Do we need to get slimmer there? That is, in my opinion, I guess not in my opinion. From what I've seen, though, those first three levers are much more of a problem for most businesses than the marketing side, because most marketing, especially if it's done well, is going to reflect an efficient business in the market. So, yeah, sure, marketing can be inefficient. As a marketer, I see that all the time. But I do find a lot of businesses want to cut marketing before improving the other areas or working on those other areas. And that can be a death nail for businesses. Whatever. I don't need to go on my marketing high horse here. But yeah, I mean, and that's where some of these other things can come into play. Some of these other secondary metrics can really give us some more insight, right? So cost per lead, how much are we paying per lead? So our total marketing cost divided by the number of leads. If for your industry, your cost per lead is super high, then yeah, you got a marketing problem, right? So that's cost per lead. Cost per estimate, how much are you spending to get an estimate? Right now, this NVPLI has different names, but it's basically our revenue per estimate. So we take our total revenue and divide that by the total number of estimates, which gives us an idea of every time a salesperson goes out to a house, how much are we getting in revenue from each of those visits. And then TRTO. I do want to go through TRTO because I think TRTO is one of my favorites metrics, which is simply total revenue divided by total opportunity. So what this says is with our opportunity number, so how much would we have, I know this is blacked out. Opportunity is all estimates. So let's say our opportunity that we could have made this quarter was 200,000 and our total revenue was 100,000. Then that means 100,000 divided by 200,000, 50%. Let's change this up. Let's say it was 400,000 that we could have made. And now we're at 25%. So what this tells us is how is when it comes to each estimate and our sales guys, are they simply getting, like, let's say you got your sales guy sold 10 out of 20 jobs, but your TRTO is 25%. That means out of the 10 jobs that your salesperson got, they got the low end. They only sold 25% of all the dollar amounts estimated. So what this means is we're not selling the big customers, right? Because at the end of the day, if your sales guy goes out, he does 10 estimates, and the 10th one is 50 grand, and all the other ones are $1,000, he should be putting in a lot of effort to get the 50 grand, right? It represents a much bigger portion of total revenue for the business. So what this number does is it helps us focus and refocus on making sure that we're putting more time and effort into closing the biggest deals rather than closing the most amount of deals. So I like that metric a lot. So these combined give us all of the primary metrics that you can track as a business and that you should be tracking and that you should be getting a report on either weekly or monthly at the most I think the best way to do this is every week I would be getting a weekly, a 4-week, a 3-month, and a 6-month report. And then, maybe every 3 months you get a year report on top of it. But every week I would be looking at these numbers, getting into these numbers, seeing what the trend is, seeing where things are going, getting the minutia of the week, but also getting your big picture, and then trying to work on these areas, improve in the areas where you're weak, and this is how you can grow your business. Business in the long run, doesn't matter what kind of business you are in, all business ends up being accounting and numbers and tracking numbers. It's not sexy, but it's important.